Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I see colleagues are trickling in. We are very excited to have you today. Thank you again for making time for today's conversation. We have our incredible alum, Shaina Taub. This virtual event is hosted by the Office of Global Inclusion in partnership with the Tisch School of the Arts as part of the NYU Women Lead, a global leadership accelerator initiative. NYU Women Lead celebrates and amplifies the prolific work of global women trailblazers, past and present, while centering intersectional gender equity and innovative leadership. This conversation is particularly special as we commemorate International Women's Day, which was celebrated this past Saturday, March 8th. We are honored to be here today in recognition of the achievements of women worldwide while acknowledging the continued work still ahead. Each year, NYU presents the Global Trailblazer Award to honor individuals who have significantly contributed to their fields and paved new pathways for inclusion, innovation, and impact. This year, we are thrilled to recognize Shaina Taub's transformative contributions to the arts and advocacy. The NYU Global Trailblazer Award recognizes individuals who create new opportunities and pathways for themselves and for others. It honors those who challenge norms, uplift communities, and redefine what is possible in their respective fields. Today, we honor Shaina Taub. Join me in welcoming Shaina on the screen. Welcome, Shaina.
Hello, so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm
Shaina,
so
I'm so excited. I'm jumping right into your bio. Shaina Taub is a two-time Tony Award winner, Grammy and Emmy nominee, artist in residence at the Public Theater, and Atlantic Records recording artist. She starred in her musical Selfs on Broadway, for which she won Tony Awards for Best Book and Best Score, Outer Critics Circle Awards for the Best Book, Best Score, Best Musical, and a Drama Desk for Music. She received a Grammy nomination for Best Musical Theater Album for the cast album of Selfs. Shaina created and performed in the musicals Twelfth Night and As You Like It with Public Works, which have been produced worldwide. She co-wrote the Emmy-nominated opening number for the 2018 Tony Awards with Sarah Bareilles and Josh Groban. She performed as Emma Goldman in New York City Center's 2024 revival of Ragtime. She was included on the 2024 Time 100 Next list of rising leaders and has been recognized for her activism with the Workers' Circle Activism Award, the League of Women Voters Tribute Award, Monumental Women's Moving History Forward Award, and the Michael Friedman Freedom Award for activism from the NYCLU Artist Ambassadors Program, which she co-chairs. Shaina, on behalf of NYU, we are honored to present you with the NYU Global Trailblazer Award for Creative Excellence and Artistic Excellence. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very honored. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce our faculty moderators. Professor Kevin Kolke has an extraordinary career in the performing arts. He has acted with renowned theater companies such as Anne Bogart, Robert Wilson, and Mabou Mines. His directing work spans major institutions, including the Atlantic Theater Company, Seattle Rep, and the Huntington Theater Company, as well as international venues across the globe in London, Warsaw, Moscow, Iceland, and beyond. His collaborations include partnerships with composers like Shaina Taub, Cynthia Hopkins, and Liz Suarez. A distinguished educator, Professor Kolke served as the director of Tisch's Experiential Theater Wing from 1991 to 2001 and as department chair from 2001 to 2008. He founded the Tisch Actor Training Programs in Amsterdam and Berlin and has taught master classes worldwide. Welcome, Professor Kolke.
Hi, great to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
So I'm going to introduce the other moderator, Mary Battelle. Are you going to, and there she's appeared. So Professor Patel is joining us. She holds a, BFA in theater and a Master of Social Works in Group Practice and a PhD in Social Welfare. She's the director of the Arts and Health Project at Tisch and the co-director of the Arts and Health Initiative at NYU. She was the inaugural chair of the Open Arts and Collaborative Arts programs at Tisch, where she led the development and launch of the BFA in Collaborative Arts. Professor Patel, she has an extensive experience in teaching and doing community-based arts practice and leading initiatives that bridge the arts with social impact. Before her academic career, she worked as a professional actor in New York and regionally, and was the director and co-founder of a multidisciplinary arts program for adolescent girls in New York City. She's a member of Actors Equity and a dedicated advocate for arts and health and community practice. Very nice to have you with us, Professor Patel. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Mary, to start off the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Wow, Shaina. Huh. Congratulations on being awarded the NYU Global Trailblazers Award, but especially for being given this award as a leader of female-identified artists in the performing arts field. So congratulations, really well done.
Thank you.
So there's so much to talk about, and there is so little time, and that's always the case.
Yeah.
So Kevin and I got to talking about what we thought would be the most helpful way for our listeners to really get to know you and your work, and to unpack this whole idea of what is a trailblazer, right? What does it mean to trailblaze in your field of practice, right, and expertise? And we thought that maybe the best way to do that was to help you to tell your story from your launching yourself at Tisch all the way through SUFS, and thinking about sort of in that journey, the work you started to develop. What was the impetus for the work you developed? Where did some of the themes and ideas and issues that have become so important to you start to rise up? The people you started to work with that continue to inform and support and enhance the work you do, right? All the work that through these numbers of years that we've known you is compelling, it's innovative, it's what makes you a trailblazer, right? It's artistically excellent, right? And it's also highly entertaining. And so we really want to help you to kind of make that journey with us in this little bit of time that we have, okay?
Let's do it.
Great. Okay, cool. So let's start with Tisch, right? This is where we both met you and started to get to know you and get to know your work and start to understand how important the work is that you make. So can you talk a little bit about what you discovered when you were working at Tisch in terms of the kind of work you wanted to make and the ideas behind it and the people you started to work with, and how did that start to impact the work that you are making now?
Absolutely. So yeah, I came to Tisch to what was at the time the musical theater studio, which I think now is New Studio on Broadway, but at the time it was Cap 21. And I came to school so excited. It was my dream school. And I was a musical theater performance major. And that was really the main thing on my mind. I did play piano, and I think, but the idea of writing as a career was not what my focus was at all. I was here to be a musical theater performer, super driven to do that. And it wasn't until I got to the amazing, inspiring environment of Tisch that via all the other studios, that I saw that students were making their own work. And it was my sophomore year, I started to sort of like feel this itch of maybe I want to try that too. And so I signed up for the playwriting practicum, and I went to one day of it. And I can't remember the teacher. I'm sure they were lovely, but I left the first day being like, wait, I don't want to write a play. I don't know what I want to, I want to make something, but I don't want to like write a play. And I was sitting with my good friend, Sam Pinkleton, who I know, and he was also a musical theater major like me at the time, but he's like, the class that you need to take is Elizabeth Swado's class, because that's like, you'll get to make stuff, but it won't be as prescribed as like it has to be within the structure of a play. And so then I went with Sam and I went to Liz's class, the late great Liz Swados. And she was the first person to kind of push me off that cliff and be like, why don't you try and go write a song? And so that sort of began it for me. And then I ultimately auditioned to transfer to the experimental theater wing, where we were all, encouraged to make our own work and try out our own stuff. And I had an incredible teacher who's still there, Jonathan Hart McQuaya, who taught a class called vocal composition. I'm pretty sure he still does. And that really was transformative for me, because I remember I showed up for that class and he was like, go to a practice room for the 3 hours of the class and just sit at the piano and see what comes out, which sounds so simple. But I had never been in, like, the fact I was like, that's what I get to do for class. I get to just sit in a room alone with a piano and see what comes out. This thing that had sort of just been a side hobby for me could be the main event. And that just cracked it wide open for me. And then I have to say, I mean, for all of you watching, I hope that you're lucky enough to get a class with the great Mary Battelle right here, because I got to take Mary's, and as I've told her many times over the years, what an important essential class it was. I took her class working with groups in community settings, which has essentially become my life. So anyway, I feel like I came to Tisch with sort of a narrow focus of performing, and via the experimental theater wing, amazing teachers like Liz, like Jonathan, like you, Mary, my horizons were expanded to see that I could create my own work and that work could have a little more impact or meaning, hopefully.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. The things that pop up for me, and you're talking about this, and wow, it's just such a reaffirming kind of a process. You said you had a kind of wait a minute, right? You had a wait a minute moment, right? Wait a minute moment. And that's such an important time for a young artist to be able to have the space and the courage to say, oh, well, hold on, wait a minute, and it's kind of and describing going into that room, and Jonathan saying go in and sit in that room, which, yeah, it's not simple. You're being pushed off the cliff, right? And having to kind of negotiate with yourself a way of allowing yourself to expand what is possible, right?
And you need
And
those teachers who are, oh, I'm so sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was so lucky to have those teachers who encouraged me, or who treated my creativity like it mattered. Like it was worthwhile, the way any student's creativity and imagination is worthwhile. I think back to even my mom, who was a elementary school teacher, used to print out like empty storybooks and just say, fill this with a story, write it down, which feels like it was so crucial just to feel like my ideas could matter, and so that's why I try and pay that forward whenever I can.
It's like just such important information for artists to hear. That, and thinking about the people you bring along with you, the people that have such impact on your formation. You talk about your friend Sam, right? And just that help to reinforce that idea of just leaping off that cliff, right? But knowing that you're leaping off a cliff, but you've got somebody holding your hand, or you're holding somebody else's hand while you do it, right? And
Yeah,
that,
and the community at Tisch, really, my best friends, I met my husband at Tisch, like in Liz's class. And the
Yep.
idea that like what we could all make together in collaboration with each other was going to be stronger and deeper, more meaningful than what we could make alone.
Yeah.
Which feels like that metaphor for democracy and society, but that can be found in theater. And that I know I'm just like, what I would say preaching to the choir, but I'm really like preaching to the choir master, Mary Patel, who like, this is your whole thing. I learned it from you. Yeah.
Well, I do want to circle back to that maybe a
Yeah.
little bit forward on in our pathway through your journey, which is about community and what you rolled around with into community practice. I know Kevin has a question for you that is sort of, if we're going chronologically, the story of Shaina's life
Yeah.
thus far. So you've got all these things that had an impact on how you think about yourself as an artist. And thank goodness, the opportunities to just kind of just see what happens, right? In an environment like, I like to think of Tisch as an imagination factory, that it gives us the space to really blow ideas around. But then you moved on, as all people have to do. Well, some of us stay at Tisch, but some people move on, right? And I know, Kevin, you have a question around that.
So yeah, my question's kind of then chronologically moving forward. By the way, I still remember the production of The Daughters in the low theater.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
when your final project for at the experimental theater wing, and being blown away and going, whoa,
Oh,
he's
thank you.
going someplace. It was, and then seeing it in its first professional iteration, someplace in Chelsea.
Yeah, at CAP. That CAP 21's
I
like
kept okay, uh, and so just a quick sidebar. I just have to say again, I have so much respect and admiration for you that you've managed to forge a career largely on your own terms, which is so incredibly difficult. So there we go. So that just, how did you find your way to public works? That's like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was uh, doing so I'm trying to think, doing so many different things out of college. I was auditioning and working when I could as an actor. I was playing piano for kids classes and all kinds of day job piano hustles. And uh before Public Works, I was performing weekly with Political Subversities, which was
Yeah,
Liz Swift's old troupe, which was full of all the Tisch kids that we
yeah,
were all writing and creating new work every week. I was trying to get my show Daughters off the ground, which never ultimately happened, even though I feel like the Daughters kind of became suffs. I've just been trying to
yeah,
tell Liz Swift's, who's my mentor, used to say, like, you just try and write the same thing over and over. Not me, Shaina, but everyone. You working out the
yeah,
same story. And
yeah,
I feel it in all of my projects. It's like the girl wearing the pants trying to get things done. It's sort of my pattern. Anyway, but you said Public Works. So I had just been a fan of Public Works. So it began in 2013 when
yeah.
Lear May began it. And I had sort of known of her because she directed at Tisch when I was an undergrad, and we had met once, I think, in a hallway. And uh, I was so blown away by what was happening, but it didn't, I had no access to that as a job. For it, that sort of happened, someone who had seen as, maybe this doesn't matter, whatever. I got, Lear had called me out of the blue, inviting me into Public Works. And I was so thrilled because I knew all about it. And it just felt like the perfect match, what I had been looking for, of something that fused writing, performing, and a community minded project that was
Mm.
going to be free and accessible to the entire city. So it was my ideal program. And I think it's what I also, what am I trying to say? I hadn't gone to a grad school. I never, like, beyond Liz's class, I never formally studied composition, never formally studied dramatic writing. And the sort of being assigned to adapt to Shakespeare plays in pretty short order. I sort of wrote them both within one 13-month span. I always think of it as my unofficial MFA, of just being, it was such a gift to, as a dramatist, to take these two Shakespeare plays and have to make them coalesce into 90-minute musicals. And then as a artist, as a community-minded artist, it gave me the perfect container to sort of try out some of these ideas of what a piece of art can do with and for a community.
Mhm.
I'm kind of thinking about the beautiful combination of, I want to say, the reverberating, say, timeless or reverberating stories that Shakespeare created, well, stole mostly, but also, made manifest in these beautiful pieces that that transcend centuries now, right? But this really beautiful connection that which I think you found, and you've already kind of spoken about this, but maybe we just sort of drill into it a little bit more, is this beautiful combination of these incredible stories that are so much about human beings, humanity, in all its frailty and all its silliness and all its bravado and everything else, right? But the pure humanity of the people in these stories. And then the location of Public Works, which is really about this idea of community, right? And about finding ways to connect these beautiful stories to communities in order to build both, right? And then the messages told in those stories, right? It's just a really, it encapsulates, I think, and thank you, Kevin, for bringing that up as sort of the next step, in the professional work to spotlight, because I think it really does spotlight all of these different parts of who you are as an artist. And I'm wondering, you know, we're about to talk about SUFs, right? And I want to make that transition, but sort of that middle.
I love to talk about public works more. Yeah.
Great. So there's this bridge, I think, that I'd love for you to kind of dig into a little bit. The bridge between the work created hundreds of years ago, right, and brought to life through community practice and the social themes that come up, and what comes out as SUFs, which is this huge commercial hit, right, but also has reverberating messages. And I think the question I have is how you continue to see making work, performing work as this vehicle for social, political, cultural, community change, right? If you can just kind of.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It all good. It's just the gospel of Mary Patel over and over again, because I think
you're making me embarrassed here.
No, come on. Yeah. It's like, I'm thinking of you. I remember you encouraging us to make the first question we ask about a project not what can this do for my career, but like what can this do for a community that I'm in partnership with, and also thinking of theater as a mutual aid society. You know, those two things really helped me. And looking at the Shakespeare plays, to your point, 12th Night and As You Like It, we were doing 12th Night in 2016, right before a big election. As You Like It in 2017, in the first year of that administration, the first time around. And so it was like, these were very site and time specific adaptations that I'm thrilled that they've now resonated and done. They've been done hundreds of times in the years since, but I was creating them for Labor Day weekend, New York City, 2016, and then 2017, and trying to think like and this community of folks, for those who don't know, performing in these musicals are from partner organizations from all around New York. There's the Fortune Society, which provides services to formerly incarcerated people. There's Military Resilience Foundation that provides various services and arts to veterans. There's Domestic Workers United. It goes on and on. So it's folks from all different backgrounds and beliefs, from all different walks of life all over the city coming together. And as Lear DeBessene, the program's founder, put it, creating a radical proposal of what a unified city could look like. So often, you know, theater, what's so great is theater can be a lot of things, but sometimes, right, theater is a mirror held up to the present to like show us the ills of society and be like, and help us to confront all of the hard things. And then there's also theater as a searchlight towards a future of what a future could look like. So in what's an example? In Illyria or in Arden, the two worlds in the plays, oftentimes a Shakespeare adaptation at a theater company might be like, we're going to do 12th Night, but we're going to do it in, I don't know, Chicago in the 1940s. They can go anywhere. But actually a public works adaptation, what I found and what I learned from the people who had made adaptations before me, I didn't invent this, rich thing to do with the public works adaptations was not to set a specific time and place.
Excellent.
And actually in this Illyria, in this Arden, it is now and every time and everywhere, because no one is an expert in this Illyria or Arden. This Illyria or Arden is a radical proposal of what would it look like if people from all walks of life got to dance and sing together, wearing bright colors and feeling communal joy. It doesn't mean that there's no dramatic conflict. Obviously, it's a Shakespeare plays, but do you know what I mean? It's like the part of the idea of like, what would it look like if New York was like this? And to go, I could talk about both plays, but I guess like Arden, you know, in the original As You Like It, as it's often done, a Duke Senior is banished to the forest of Arden with a couple of lords. There's like 4 or 5 of them or something, by his tyrannical brother who has taken over an authoritarian regime in the land and banished anyone he considers other. I mean, it's difficult for us to imagine such a thing, but
really, I know it's impossible, right?
But I thought, well, even though in the Shakespeare play, there's only 4 or 5 people in this giant community production where we have maybe 200 performers from age 5 to 85, what would it look like? How could I serve the community, or not serve the community? Because I also don't, that language is hard. It's mutual aid. How can we, I'm part of that community. How can we all serve the city and make it meaningful for us? So what if, instead of just Duke Senior and a couple guys, what if his brother banished Duke Sr. and an entire community from an entire neighborhood, families, all cast away, deported to another place. And what would it look like if Arden was populated by 100 people? And it was a whole community, and that felt like a reason that I wanted to find a way that the Shakespeare play would require the community.
Yeah.
And that when you're doing community-based work, that the community members are not, that they're essential to the enterprise and not just added at the end.
Right.
So that felt like a way to hopefully make the adaptation meaningful. Yeah. There's
Well,
more.
I mean, it's having seen these productions and having seen them in the park, which is itself strives to be, holds on desperately to be a place of all the people, that's a remarkable thing to have happen, where a 5-year-old and an 80-year-old they're not stage dressing, they're living and breathing and embodying the community and the ideas that Shakespeare was hopefully trying to help us to see. But certainly, what my sense of it through that experience is that you expanded the possibility, right? You expanded possibility, and this idea of mutual aid is really so important. This mutual process, that by producing this, by sharing this, I am then in return receiving something back that enriches me and helps me to feel more powerful or more a part of something, which is what I think you're saying you were attempting, and which is what I was seeing happening in these public works pieces. And my question then is, and maybe you're not allowed or you're not allowing yourself to answer this question, but you're going to do some more of it?
Oh, of public works?
A public works type work at the very least.
Oh, yeah,
Public works
absolutely.
itself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, as we're all probably aware, more than ever, do we need a place where people enter into and engage in a reciprocal process where they are welcomed into that process. So I'm really happy to hear that. So we're moving down the journey of your life, right? And into this huge thing that became Broadway hit, right? But my understanding is that it was a long development process, right? You said, the piece that you were talking about with Kevin, that was the impetus, and Liz's input and everything else. Kevin, do you have anything you want to kind of drop in about the questions around SUFs as we sort of move into how you move from these ideas around public works pieces, maybe into this huge commercially viable piece?
Yeah, although but before I ask that, I want to make an observation, and you tell me if this is correct or not, Shaina, that when you started as a student, there was how's the best way to put this? Or this idea that an artistic path doesn't really reveal itself until after you've walked on it, meaning that when you started out, did you think, oh, I'm going to go to Tisch, and then I'm going to make a play, and then I'm going to work for Public Works, and then I'm going to do this and this and this, that in fact, you discover that along the way. And then you can look backwards and go, oh, it all made sense. But on the front end, it's like just following what's of interest and really compelling to me. It's just something I think it's for the young folks who are listening into this, that it's an important reminder that it may not be clear where things are headed. You just follow what you're passionate about.
Stay open to it and don't feel like you need to pick one lane. I kind
Exactly.
of thought in the first 5 or 6 years of college, I was getting some traction with writing and perform, and I kind of thought I needed to like trade the hats.
Yeah.
And I kind of decided to forget that and just not put myself in a box and present myself as someone doing all the things and just go with that and try and put that out there. Like I remember I used to have 2 separate bios, I had a bio, like my actor bio and my writer bio for different contexts or applications. And then I was like, why am I doing this? Let me have one bio. And just that simple thing, I felt the opportunities that started to come back to me, like Public Works, like Old Hats, like these things where I've performed and written. The opportunities reflected the way I was seeing myself.
So let's kind of move on a little bit to, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens before SUFs, although I know that was in development while you were doing lots of other things. Uh, maybe you could talk about the impetus for creating SUFs and a bit what the development process was like, and then what was the shift like going from the public to Broadway?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
give,
so
yeah.
after that senior project that you mentioned that I kind of did in various workshop iterations for a couple years, I kind of put that to the side. Then I was working on a uh, Robin Hood adaptation where I was flipping the genders around.
Yeah.
Uh, that kind of wasn't going anywhere. I was just really looking for like a story of a group of women banding together, taking on a system and their
Mhm.
friendships and their struggles. And I couldn't really find what to adapt. So I was like, why don't I take this male English myth and flip it?
Mhm.
And then I was working on that. And then Rachel Sussman, another Tisch alum,
Yeah.
amazing Tony winning producer, Rachel Sussman, who I only knew a little. She knew my husband from college. Like we kind of had some mutual friends. She emailed me out of the blue to get coffee. I was working in Boston at the time, actually doing a production of The Tempest, where I was arranging Tom Waits songs. And I was like, I'd love to get coffee with you, but I'm in Boston. She's like, I'll come. And she came to Boston. We had never met before. She came and uh, she sat me down and asked what I knew about the American women's suffrage movement. And I kind of realized like all I know is one anecdote about Susan B. Anthony or the one paragraph about a convention in the 19th century in upstate New York. I think Susan B. Anthony dollar, like all this was in my mind was like a Susan B. Anthony dollar. I kind of realized I was like, I don't know anything. What? And then she handed me a book called Jail for Freedom, which is a firsthand account of the struggle for suffrage written by Doris Stevens, who ultimately became a character in Suffs. And she was like, check this out. I think it could be a great musical. It's this untold story. And I think you should write it. I think I would love to produce it and we should do it. And I was kind of like, okay, okay. And I went and did my show at ART that night. And then I went home. I was like, before I went to bed, why don't I just start the book? Cut to 4 a.m. I stayed up all night reading the book. I couldn't believe, I was like, this is everything I've been looking for in a story. This is that group of women taking on a system, banding together, becoming for like, I have been searching for it in Greek myth, in Robin Hood, and it was just in my own backyard as a young American woman this whole time. This
Mhm.
treasure trove of history that has like not had a major dramatization on a major stage or film.
Mhm.
And I felt so many things. I couldn't, I was, it was so dramatic and thrilling. And then also I felt like angry that I had, at the time I was 25 and that the history hadn't made it to me at that point, even though I was like specifically looking for it. So I was like, if this didn't make it to me till I was 25, who is it making it to? And it just, I emailed her at 4 a.m. and was like, we have to do this. Yes, we've got to do it. And I
Mhm.
remember she like posted the screenshot of that email last year on the week of the Tonys, being like 10 years later, you know. But you talk the thing you mentioned earlier about this hindsight makes
Yeah.
everything seem inevitable. It was anything but. We were two 25-year-olds. We had no theater commissioning it. We had no money support. We had nothing. We were just us and this idea that we just both like believed in so strongly. So it was just like a slow, long haul decade of trying to get people to believe in it, trying to build it, trying to rebuild it, trying to get it produced, trying to dealing with the pandemic, trying to get people to give it a theater over and over and over and over and over again. It was never a sure thing that
Mhm.
happened at any point in the process.
And so then how did it eventually you do it at the public and then the switch from there to Broadway?
Yeah. I mean, what's so amazing with a musical and you just don't know what you have till you're in front of an audience. And
Yeah.
so what's so helpful at the public is like I mean, it was difficult too because it was deep pandemic and we lost, I think, a third of our performances for COVID. We shut down 2 different times for 2 weeks. We lost our opening
Yeah.
night. I mean, I know all of theater was really going through it that year, so I know I'm not alone. But
Yeah.
the show that we did have, I learned so much from an audience, like just like of what was landing, what wasn't. And I left that run feeling really excited and fired up to keep working and keep revising. I knew from like our earliest previews, I was like, I'm not going to finish writing this thing here at the Public Theater. Like, I'm not done. Sometimes
Mhm.
people say, like, oh, you went back to the drawing board after the public. And I'm like, I never left the drawing board. Like, we were still there. So, like,
Yeah.
creatively, I was excited to keep going. I never stopped until they like tore the pencil out of my hand when we froze on Broadway last April. But the challenge was just like keeping the faith and the creative, I don't know what, drive just to get up and sit down at the piano, because we didn't know if Broadway would happen. It's not like we left the public being like, and we will start rehearsals for Broadway. It was 2 years. It was
Yep.
2 years. And we didn't get that Broadway theater until the summer of 2023.
Mhm.
So for that whole year and a half of revising it, I was sitting there being like, this might never see the light of day, but I
Mhm.
just knew I would not feel at peace until I finished it. So I had to just kind of be like, even
Mhm.
if we never get another production and I can just print out my final draft of this, I will at least feel better. Yeah.
And and were there differences having it produced off Broadway and on Broadway?
I mean, yeah, just that like our exposure was so much bigger. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the reach we were able to have and if
Uh-huh.
what felt like the impact I hope that seemed like we were making on just we had way more eyeballs on us. I
Uh-huh.
mean, just what I'd always kind of dreamed of like this show inspiring a bunch of kids and girls. I mean, it just felt like they were like we were hearing from them every day, and just so the reach, I just couldn't. It was so much, having worked solely off Broadway, and I love off Broadway and will always work off Broadway. Uh, I'd been working for 10 years since I graduated off Broadway, New York Theater Workshop, the Signature, Public, the Delacorte, all these great places. But there's Broadway, I guess, for better and worse. It's just like a bigger mouthpiece, a bigger literal stage. So that was really thrilling. And I don't know. I sometimes I think I got really lucky and had a really special, I don't know, amazing first Broadway experience, because I think we had producers and a team. Everyone involved was really passionate about telling the story and telling it in 2024, in the run up to a presidential election, in the aftermath to a presidential election. It really felt like a team sport at SUFS. Like the cast, the crew, the team, everyone like had a belief, and everyone knew why we were doing it.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, look, there were difficulties and challenges and trying to sell tickets, all the things. And I learned so much. It just felt like another mini MFA. But yeah, it felt like a surprisingly uncynical process.
Uh-huh.
Again, there were challenges, there were frustrating days. I'm not trying to be like everything was sunshine and rainbows. Like, of course, it was hard as hell. Like I mean, I was brought to I was in tears, like it's difficult and it was hard and it was scary and it was vulnerable to like share it with the world and face the press and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, it felt very like I feel proud that our team, I feel, did it with our integrity intact. Like
Uh-huh.
we didn't lose sight of
Yeah.
sort of our mission, I think.
And and just one last thing, anything in particular that you hoped an audience would walk away from the production having experienced?
There's a great quote by a writer and thinker I like named Maria Popova that is, uh, critical thinking without hope is cynicism, and hope without critical thinking is naivete. And I love that distillation, because for me, it's the combination of critical thinking and hope, which is
Yeah.
kind of where I live as a writer, which is what I hope people leave.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not having a disingenuously optimistic view of what's coming, but also not having a completely dark view, that they can, I'm going to think critically about the moment that we're about, the history we've experienced,
Mm-hmm.
and walk out of the theater into present day
Uh-huh.
feeling like a better day is possible, while also understanding how complex, like the nuance of it, of
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that you've just made your own operational definition of trailblazer there, right? And there are these words that came up as you were talking, and for me, I wrote them down. People, it's right there in front of you. Research, hope, and critical thinking, integrity, revising, building, faith, all of those pieces that you spoke really so eloquently about. I mean, I find it very moving, actually, Shaina, really moving, and I thank you for that. But all of those pieces, that to me is what personifies trailblazing, right? It's not ignoring the reality of what's around you. It's not necessarily embracing it, right? It's knowing it's there. It's recognizing it in all its nuance, and still going. Still, I have a on my door of my office at Tisch, I have a little post-it, and it says "Keep marching,"
Oh, you do? I love that.
and it's because of you. Actually, it's because of you. And it just sits there, little post-it, and it's actually next to a Martin Luther King quote. So there you go. But it's that, right? Trailblazing is about marching. It's about you keep marching on and you stay in it, right? My question, because we're getting close to that magic hour, we have to stop, but what's next then? Here you are, as Kevin said, you're in the process of it. You don't know till you've gone through it, but now you're moving forward. So what's next? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, so many things. I mean, now that stuff's for so long, it was just about finishing the writing of stuff. So now that that is finally done, I'm excited to sort of hopefully be I don't know what the word is, steward of stuffs in these coming years of now the national tour is going to launch this fall. Our original Broadway production was filmed for PBS that will air next year and, in a year of a midterm. And the rights will become available for soon for schools and communities, which was always my ultimate dream. I think my priority with stuffs was to create a piece that was hopefully like durable and expansive enough to work in a school or community setting. I intentionally tried to make a lot of roles, something I learned from Public Works. I tried to make the roles reasonable to do. Like like nothing that was too heavy a lift acting or singing wise. I mean, they're pretty heavy. I mean, I did it myself. It was humbling, but like it was, nothing that's so impossible. And also a show that I hope could work in a high school gymnasium with all the lights on and folding chairs, like a show that does not require production value. It could have it. We had beautiful design on Broadway, but so I'm excited that, as I was saying before, via the giant spotlight of Broadway and our tour, that hopefully will give some awareness to the show. It will end up where I really want it, which is in a high school like the public high school like the one I went to in Vermont, where a group of teens can put on the show for themselves and learn about this history and learn about how change gets made in this country and who gets to decide, and ask themselves the question about how they want to make change, that the show can be a catalyst for hopefully that kind of critical thinking and movement making for the next generation. So it's a big priority of mine this year to do everything I can to kind of like build the infrastructure for that kind of thing to happen. We have a licensing home at Music Theater International, and I'm collaborating with them. We haven't announced it yet, but like just hopefully trying to do some initiatives around this very thing to make stuff as accessible as possible to schools.
That's wonderful. I mean, this seems to me, the work I've been kind of doing with younger kids and integrating the arts and civic health, that there's a clarion call right now for moving out into communities, moving out into schools particularly, and having conversation about what do we mean by civic health? What does it mean to be engaged in the civic structure, right? And what better way to do that? No better way to do that than through the arts, because it speaks to everything you've been talking about here, from walking in the doors of Tisch to now this time today on the 13th of March, right? It speaks to, the arts speak to that opportunity. Yeah.
And it's like, why do you think systems of power in this country right now are trying to ban the teaching of honest history? They're trying to limit language. They're trying to chill, free expression of art on an iconic American stage in DC, all these things. Why do you think they're so afraid of that? Because they know how powerful language can be. They know how powerful the arts can be. They know that arts get people thinking, and that's the last thing they want. They know that when young girls see a play about their real history, they're going to want to write the next chapter themselves, and that's the last thing they want. So to me, it's like a testament to the power of the arts that they're trying to control free expression and language, and education tells you everything you need to know. So I think even just continuing to make art, fund art, teach art is essential to democracy right now, which is, I feel like, can feel trite or banal or feel like something we tell ourselves as artists, but really I do believe it in a time like this. And I've often thought, like, in the aftermath, sorry, I know I'm going past time, but I'm just chatting now. Like the aftermath of the election at Suffs in our final couple months on Broadway, I think people comment to me, oh, it must be so hard to do the show. And I kind of, my own experience, I don't know what, it wasn't hard to do the show. I felt like I was like exercising a right, because in the aftermath of an election like the one we had in Russia or China or some other, the doing stuffs on Broadway would not have been allowed. Like the fact that we could still do it, I was like, I can still stand on the stage and be critical of the American government out in the open, and no one's arresting me at the end of the night. And that's a pretty low bar, but it is a bar. And so like I was like, let's celebrate that.
Yeah. Well, and then the idea that young people will do that. They'll take up your words and your music and your ideas and your thoughts. And even if they're doing it out in the street, they'll keep doing it. And that's marching on, right? That is marching on.
Yes.
One, this is a speed question, speed answer, right? Do you have a message? Do you have a message for young artists, particularly female identified or non-binary artists in this particularly volatile time? Do you have a message for
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the two pillars for me that are evergreen are discipline and community. Find your discipline, read The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp.
yeah.
Make your creativity a practice and not just a whimsical thing that happens when you feel in the mood, like make it a practice, like going to the gym, and make sure that you're exercising that muscle constantly, especially before you're accountable to other people. Just so that the creative muscle is strong when you need it most. And then community, finding your group, finding your brain trust, finding the people you want to make things with, the people you want to make things for, because it's just going to be everything. So think balancing the alone in a room time for your discipline and the time with your community.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So there are a couple of questions that have come in from viewers. Let's see. I think the first one, well, there's comments. You were amazing, Shaina. Da, 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 da. But the question was, is Suffs coming back to Broadway?
I hope there's a revival one day. That would be really cool.
Okay.
I hope, but yeah, but not soon.
Another question, what's the greatest piece of advice for young musical theater writers, especially when it comes to delegating and letting go of your art so it can be in the hands of other creatives?
Mm. I mean, I think having really open and honest conversations with your collaborators, making sure that you find a system for giving feedback that works for everyone, and being willing to be wrong. Like I've had moments where I've like dug in my heels on a certain thing in someone else's department, and then giving it a chance. Like, there was a staging thing and I felt really strongly it shouldn't happen and it was killing me. And I was like, this doesn't work. But we kind of all agree, kind of in general in a collaboration, being like, everyone gets one shot at an idea that they care about. And we gave it a shot, and it ended up working, and I was wrong.
Funny how that happens.
I know, can't believe, but also, and then when it's just like, yeah, letting everyone in the collaborative scrum have let their ideas see the light of day. I think
Uh-huh.
nothing collaborations kind of fester and grow resentment if
Yeah.
someone's not allowed to even test drive their idea. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, if I have an idea as a writer and someone else on the team is like, that doesn't work. So I sometimes like to be like, can we try it once just so you can show me how bad it is? I just want to feel the shame of how bad it is. Let the proof be in the pudding. Like, just try it to embarrass me. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? And that usually like just kind of works. And sometimes it does. And other times I'm like, see? So I think just on every side of that, just letting everyone in the group
All
get to
right.
their idea
That
at least.
kind of that just reminds me a little bit of teaching with giving, to students who go, oh, they go, no, I don't know. I know. It's like, look, just try it once. You never have to
Yeah.
do it again. Just give it a shot. Pretty often it works, and then I get to go, uh,
Or sometimes it doesn't and you see. That's
or you were right. It doesn't work. Great, let's drop it and move on.
yeah.
So,
So fight
uh,
for the thing you care about, but also be humble enough to be wrong.
yeah. Uh, and somebody would like you to repeat what you said about critical thinking and hope.
You got it. Okay, so her name is Maria Popova. I don't know her. I just like her. She has a weekly newsletter that's really good called The Marginalian that is just like collected essays and quotes. Fantastic.
Mhm.
And yes, her quote is critical thinking without hope is cynicism, but hope without critical thinking is naivete.
Okay. Uh, uh, reminds me of, 'cause I did Sufi practice long years and years ago, but teacher saying to be a pessimist with open eyes or an optimist with, oh no, an optimist with open eyes.
Yeah. Or as I think Madeleine Albright said, an optimist who worries a lot.
Yeah. So, next question. Will Suffs be coming to San Francisco on the tour?
Hold. Sorry, I had to consult with my Secret Service. It has, yes, and it will.
Okay. And how do you block the haters?
You stay away from the internet. Stay off social media. If you are an artist putting out work for public consumption in any significant way, you cannot be searching the internet to try and read what people are saying. Because if you search, what at least I found, because I don't do it anymore. I used to, and I learned the hard way because I realized what I was searching for was confirmation of my own insecurity. I was actually looking for someone to confirm for me how bad I was worried I was inside. And if you go looking for something for some people who don't like your art online, you're going to find it. Like, it's there. You just have to keep. So it's just, I have blocked certain sites on my phone. I have blocked them. I've had someone else block them on my computer, so I don't even know how to find them. I mean, it helps. I'm not very good with tech, but like, you just can't. I don't read reviews. I know that's something people say, but I really don't, because it just it makes it about, that doesn't mean don't take in feedback, because I found ways to take, I think, to meaningfully take in feedback and criticism. And I'd like to think I've like built that muscle up for taking criticism. I've taken a shit ton of it, excuse me. But yeah, it's just not worth it. Art is subjective. Some people are gonna like it, some people are not. If your mission is for everyone to like your art, it's not gonna be fun for you.
Let's see, lots of thank yous. You're amazing. I saw that you like Once on This Island. Can you talk about the reason?
Incredible. I love Once on This Island because I think Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty are the great geniuses of American musical theater. And I mean, talk about community-minded musical. I mean, Once on This Island was really inspiring to me for As You Like It, actually, just because the whole frame of the book of Once on This Island is the community telling a story of the past to a kid in the community.
Mhm.
And it's such a beautiful storytelling tool, and the kind of show that I can imagine like works in the gym with all the lights on and nothing. Like, it is
Yeah.
it's that kind of
Yep.
show.
Yep.
And the score is incredible. I mean, just like no skips.
Kevin, I think we're running right up close to 1 o'clock. Is there?
Okay.
one more, or that is speaking to you, Kev?
Well, let's see. A specific, do you have a specific artistic process or creative philosophy putting your ideas to page, especially when you go about writing songs?
Do you have a specific artistic process? Sorry, I'm seeing that I can read it too.
Oh,
I just
you can read. Okay, great.
saw it, but it really backfired. Can you say it again? Sorry, because it moved.
Oh, okay. Do you have a specific process, artistic process, when you sit down to write, or
Yeah,
philosophy that's guiding you, or a particular process?
for theater writing, I do some songwriting that's not for theater, but for theater writing,
Uh,
I read an interview with Sheldon Harnick and Jerry Bach, are those their names, who wrote Fiddler on the Roof? I don't know if of like in an interview, someone was like, what comes first, the music or the lyrics? And one of them said the book. And for me, that's very true. And not just technically like a book, but like the outline for
right.
theater. I tend to like outline for sometimes years. I mean, the Shakespeare ones, I had to do it really truncated, but I outlined for like 2+ years on stuffs before I ever wrote a note of music.
Mhm.
On the musical that I'm working on currently, with my collaborators, we sat and talked it through for like 2 years before we read. And for me, like having the foundation
Yeah.
helps me, or even with a song, like beating out what the song is. It doesn't mean that then once you start to really write, everything can't change, or a visceral impulse. And again, they're all different writing. I don't mean to say you should write this way. You have to find
Yeah.
what works. But what works for me, the songs have to do so much work in a musical, is figuring out some of the story and character stuff before I like really write lyrics or music. Yeah.
And one last question. Do you have a morning routine that sets you up to be creative?
Do I have a morning routine that says, I mean, I like to write at a reasonable time. Like some people like to stay up all night, but I like to like sleep a long time and have coffee and like write as soon as possible in the day. I think if I wait till later, I'm in trouble. So I like to get up and get cracking. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so very much. Alas, I have the very difficult task of bringing this incredible conversation to an end. Thank you all for being part of this inspiring conversation, which so clearly illustrates that theater and democracy are inextricably linked. A place for all the people, one of expanded possibilities. I was taking notes, not only holding up a mirror for us to examine our society, but also offering us an avenue through which to imagine how things could be different. A heartfelt reminder that we must march on to the tune of hope while embracing critical thinking. Shaina, we are so proud to honor you with the Global Trailblazer Award. Thank you for your time, your candid insights, and contributions to the arts, for choosing to share your light to serve as a catalyst for advancing social change. We are also grateful to Professors Mary Battelle and Kevin Kulke for joining us today and for their dedication to the arts and to cultivating the creative genius of our students. A very special thanks to the Tisch School of the Arts, our very own imagination factory, in the words of Professor Battelle, for their invaluable partnership. As we close, let's carry forward the spirit of today's discussion to balance self-discipline and community engagement, to uplift voices, challenge barriers, and lead with creativity, integrity, and purpose. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you at future NYU Women Lead events. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Shaina. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank
Shaina.
you guys too. So great to talk to you. Let's do it again.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.